All right, gang. We are in week 3, but in chapter 2 of uh, the Power of Five with Mr. John Maxwell. So I'm super pumped to jump into this, and it's fascinating that you know when John was talking through when we were in Atlanta about the different powers, he kept saying this is the most important one. No, this one's the most important one. And it's really funny because when you really take each of them individually, it does seem super important, but they just work so well together. And I think that you can have growth and you can have significance, you have all those things, but if you don't have connection, then the other things fall short. And so they just play off of each other really well. And so we're going to talk about connecting tonight. Cassie and I was able to do actually a video. I don't know if you jumped on and saw our video. We're not Maxwell level, but I thought we did okay with our little 4-minute plexified version of connection. If you haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to do so. And if anything, to see my beautiful wife on a video, because we don't see enough of those. But so we're going to talk a little bit about connection, and as we're talking about that, I wanted to kind of set a little different of a framework for us this evening, because there's so much good stuff in this chapter that I'm nervous to just go frame by frame like we kind of have been. And so I'm just kind of open it up a little bit to us be able to, we can kind of popcorn around a little bit in this chapter. But before we do that, before I open it up, I want to really emphasize how much he talks about this idea of connecting being a skill that you can develop, because I think that a lot of us maybe feel like maybe we don't have the ability of connection, or we have to really work on that. But I think he makes it very clear that we can develop this skill. And I think all of you are connectors. I think all of you have made connections. I don't think you can, if I'm being honest, I don't think you can survive really in network marketing without having some sort of ability to connect with people, right? And so he, at the very beginning, he talks about, from his book Winning with People, the different here. He said, here's just a few 25 principles that I outline in like these 25 things, and they're all really good. And so instead of reading all of these out, I'll just say that I thought what was interesting to me, at least a couple that stuck out to me about connecting, and the idea of kind of some principles. And again, this is about dealing with people, right? When connections are dealing with people. So he's not necessarily talking about connecting, but I like some of these things. Some couple of things that I've kind of pulled out of this was, number one, the gardening principle. All relationships need cultivation. And I think that's one of the most difficult things for me to remember, that, or at least to be able to remember that other people need that relationship cultivated, that we need to constantly go back to that relationship. I'm one of those people that can go without talking to a friend for a long time, and then talk to them and we just pick right back up. So if I'm not, I know that's not for everybody. And so I like that one. And I also liked the boomerang principle. When we help others, we help ourselves. And I thought that was really good. The idea that when we connect with others, we help others, we're also helping ourselves. And so out of those, I think what he gave us, a dozen maybe out of the 25, or is it here just a few of the 25? Yeah, so like a dozen of the 25. Before we get into the chapter really a whole lot, is any of those 25 got the hammer principle, the elevator principle, the big picture principle, the charisma principle? Are any of those, any of those pop out to you that you're like, yeah, that makes sense? Like the bedrock principle, trust is the foundation of any relationship. That's pretty foundational, if you will. If you're going to have friendships, you're going to have connection, you need trust. So anyway, as you're reading those through, and maybe you glanced through them the first time and you didn't take a look at them. So maybe looking back over them even right now, are there any ones that just kind of pop out at you and like, hey, that principle kind of grabbed me, and this is how I think I see that playing out in my life or in my business?
I'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey y'all. I connect to a lot of them, actually. I'm like, yep, see that. But I think that the one that I see the most kind of rise and fall in is the lens principle of, who we are determines how we see others. Because I think that what's in me is the Lord has gifted me of like seeing potential and value and then calling that out in people. And I can tell that if my mind is fixed on, like if I'm in a fixed mindset, poverty mindset, then I am not as obedient and perceptive when I'm with people to
Mm-hmm.
really kind of pour that out from them, you know, because it's like when you become in that fixed mindset or poverty mindset, you kind of lose the belief that you have something to give or to add value.
Hmm.
And so the more that I continue to work on abundant mindset, growth mindset, and just really keeping my spirit and my mind connected and right, then I feel I've seen it. So since I put all of my kids in school, and now for the first time in 9 years, I have mental space during the week. People are like, "How are you?" I'm like, "Really good. I'm really good. I'm really good." Like, but I think it's just I am feeling myself like, oh, here I am as a person and not as all the roles that I play. And so I connect a lot to the lens principle because it's so true that we can see value in other people, but yet if our perception of ourselves is misplaced, then we can't always truly see the situation and the friendship for how it's being played out.
Yeah.
You know, we may see a situation as being uninvited when in essence it's not that at all, or, you know.
A lot of misinterpretations of connection.
Yes, exactly. So
That's good. Yeah. No, I see that for sure. I see
because
mindset playing a lot to this. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I feel like that one really speaks into all the rest because if you don't, you know, if you're not sure of yourself, then you struggle to be an outpouring and all that. You're not going to cultivate well. You're not going to go to a higher level or any of
Work with
those
other people
places.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. Um, yeah, I can agree more. I think that's huge. And gosh, how many misconnections have we maybe had even because we had a poor mindset about how we see ourselves, you know? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. Anybody else? Just reading the list here. Any of these that kind of stuck out to you a little bit?
It's like all of them.
Mine were, no,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, go ahead, Kelly.
No, that was my answer. So you go.
Oh. I was going to say the big picture because I like to look at the big picture. And I think there's always a bigger picture. It's bigger than me. You know, my purpose is bigger than me. I'm supposed to do all these other things because there is something else. And all these other people cross our path, are in our lives, spark something in us for some reason. And it all has to do with the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be so minded that it's just about points or people or prizes or all those other things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, he has this story about Pam and how she, you know, person show up and meets that person, they become this rock star. And, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, see, connection comes in so many different ways now, right? It's not just a connection that we have with people face to face. Now with social media, you have a whole persona of connection that you put out there. And I'm telling you, I could write a book, and I might just do it on how to have emotional intelligence when on social media. Because there are so many times where I think people have really good intentions, but they lose connections because they present themselves in a way on social media that is not, you know, I am the passive aggressive police. I do not do passive aggressive. I don't handle that well. Just talk to me, tell me what's going on, what's happening. Don't, you know, write some vague status that makes me wonder, are you talking about me? You know, I mean, like that type of thing. Or the person that leaves it open-ended, I had such a bad day, ... So everybody can ask them how their day, you know. And so, but even, you know, when political season comes around and some of the things, you know, not that you can't, you know, be boisterous about things you care about, but it's just where our connections come in such different ways, and we never know who we're repelling or compelling, you know, to us. And we have to be so careful. And now we need to be true to ourselves. We don't have to be in a persona or a mask, but just to have an emotional intelligence, because you never know if you're going to miss out on like a really amazing, I hate to use the term rock star, but someone who would just absolutely kill it in this business. I'll give an example. Cassie was a birth photographer before Plexus. She had a couple other jobs along the way in our marriage, but the one before Plexus was birth photographer, and she was pretty hot commodity. She was being called in a lot and had clients lined up, and one of those clients happened to be Allie Kent's. And if Cassie, I think, would have treated that as just another client, another baby being born, snap, 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 here's your pictures, thanks so much for your business. But instead, I think Cassie made a pretty deep connection with her, and and really did a good job, and was able to connect her in that way, and presented herself well, to where the time where Cassie jumped into Plexus, Callie was one of the first people to jump in, because it was a recent connection that she had made with Cassie. And of course, the rest writes itself. I would have never met Kelly Ione if it had not been for that connection. So I mean, so it's really, we just really don't know what or whom we are going to be connecting with. And I think it's really good to look at the big picture you talked about, Terry, because it's not about points, it's not about prizes, it's about people. We're in the people business, and I'm always wondering if this person that is being dismissed because they're not really active, if it push in the right direction, could they be the next, and then fill in the name of the next Plexus superstar that you know of? I mean, like, could they be that person? Could that person that's sitting next to you at the gym or at church or at school, wherever, is that person that you got that inclination that could be that next rock star? Why not connect with them? So he goes into these connecting practices, and I think they're really great if we can just look over these just for a second and pull out some good stuff. The first connecting practice he talks about is practice the value of connecting with people. So you can't be good at connecting people unless you practice, which makes sense. This is I wouldn't suggest going to a coffee shop and randomly started talking to people. That might be a little weird if you're going to try and practice that way, but for each his own. But he says almost everything we become and accomplish in life is with and through people. Very few things, I think, and what he's trying to point to, very few things we do by ourselves. Therefore, the ability to connect and create relationships with others is the most important skill that we can learn. And I love that. And he goes into these lists. He goes, can you name the 3 wealthiest people, the Heisman Trophy winners? And he goes through all these things. And, as you're reading the questions, you're like, well, I don't, those are famous people, but I don't really remember who did that. I don't remember who did that. But then he goes to the second list and says, list 3 teachers who aided you in your journey. And I immediately was like, well, Mr. Schulte, Miss Miller, and, Miss Simpson. Like, I literally could name those 3. That helped me along my journey when I was reading this. Name friends that have helped you through difficult time. I think of Rebecca and Jeremy Woodruff, who are very pivotal in Cassie and I's journey when we were at our lowest point financially. So, when I read these, he's pretty much saying, like, it was a lot easier. That quiz was a lot easier the second round, because those are people who have connected with you. They're not famous. They're not known. They're not, these big names, but they're people who have made a significant impact in your life. And so it may become cliche, he says, but it's still true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so what do you think about that first one, about practicing connection with others in that list? Did you allow yourself mentally to go through that list a little bit and kind of see what you can come up with?
And the quiz one?
Yeah. Like, what did you think about that?
I'm gonna be honest. I went through it quick and was like, oh, I get it. I get what he means. That's all. I was like, oh, that was easy, and I just moved quickly through it. Right.
That's okay.
Sorry. Got the point. I liked the part before where it was like 85% of your it's like your success in a job is based on your attitude and ability to relate to people. That came right before that, but I was like, that's so true.
Yep. Yeah, and you see it in education all the time, I'm sure. I mean, the teachers who usually thrive are the ones who do well and make advancements and get opportunities are the ones who connect well with others.
I will say that more about students though, because
That's true. Yeah, no, you're right.
I tell my kids that too. I've said, like, if you have a good attitude and you're willing to learn and you're politely asking a question or contributing, a teacher is more willing to help you and you will have more success.
Hmm.
If you complain and, hide in the back and never talk and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and I tell my students too, I'm like, I'm human too. So like, if you're nice to me, I can be nicer to you. It's
Yeah.
something you've got to learn on a job too. If you're going to just
Oh, most definitely.
complain and hate it, they're not going to help you and you're not going to be successful in the job. So,
Right. And I think that's so true, and the complaining part, especially like
yeah.
It's hard to connect with people who complain all the time,
Yeah.
who have that kind of grateful spirit to the things that the opportunities afforded to them,
Yeah.
So yeah. But it's funny how we're drawn to people who are very thankful and joyous people. We're drawn to people who are driven, drawn to people who are kind. And it's interesting. And he barely hits on it, but I mean, I think kindness is such an underrated attribute in our lives. I think that we really raise the bar for all these other characteristics, but man, just to be kind sometimes, just to be a kind person. And it's not something I've mastered for sure. I mean, I definitely have to work on it. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And whenever, it's always hard. I think one of the most, and I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and I don't want to chase a rabbit here, but I don't know about you, but when someone says that you've impacted me, you've affected me, you've made this connection with me, and it's made a difference. To me, sometimes that's hard to receive because I'm like, I don't know what I've done. I need to learn how to take those kind of comments better. But it is one of the most fulfilling things, I think, in our lives, that when someone says, because of your connection, because of your efforts in connecting with me or building that bridge or reaching out, I'm able to stay at home, with my kids, because of your efforts. And we know that they had to put the work in, right? We know that they had to do the things. I mean, that's it. So it's a flattering comment. It's not necessarily accurate because it was in them all along, but you were the spark, right? You were the catalyst to that because you made that connection and you were appealing. What you were doing was appealing. So it's funny. I used to put anything I ever wanted on Facebook. I was like, whatever, I'll just throw everything up. Oh, that's funny or whatever. I didn't care. And now I literally think about every single thing I put up because it's like my business. So I made a joke in a sermon today at the very beginning, and I was like, well, I wish I could have had that one back because it didn't come out right. And I looked over at Cassie and her face confirmed that didn't come out right. So, she's my truth teller and I appreciate it. So anyway, anybody else on this first little section? If not, we'll just keep moving along.
I mean, I think it's the age-old adage that, people remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And when you feel
good or bad.
People love to feel needed, they love to be asked to do something, they love to be appreciated. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I learned this volunteering at church, it doesn't matter if you ask them to cut out hearts with construction paper or you ask them to help build a set for the Christmas mass. Both of those things are super important. And the gal who spent her only 2 hours of free time cutting out construction paper hearts is still so appreciated just as much as the guy who built the set. And people want to know that you appreciate them. And I think you're right about kindness. People are not kind and they say things that aren't kind, and people do remember that. And I try really hard. I say a lot of stuff in my head that I don't say out loud, which is probably good. But there are people that they just need a smile or they just need a kind word and not be a jerk.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know why, but that's really hard for some people.
Well, and we're in a world that doesn't necessarily value that,
Right. Yeah,
it's about getting ahead, about
it is.
our
Yeah,
needs, and about, and so, it kind of moves us in this next section about practicing valuing people and letting them know it. I think you just nailed it, Terry, letting them know that they value. And he goes through 3 little steps. He's like, first, let them know that you need them. Second, compliment people in front of other people. And third, practice adding value to people every single day. And I think that's crucial. He told a story. And I don't know if it got made into the training the video that he does for each section. I don't know if it made it there, but I want to tell you about a really neat connection that he told us about that I think, Terry, speaks to what you're talking about, of like letting people know that they are valuable and they're needed. So Mark, and I can't remember Mark's last name, but he's John Maxwell's CEO, and he oversees all 7 of their companies. I cannot imagine how busy he is. And for John Maxwell to handpick him and been with him for a long time, he must be a very special person, very gifted person. But whenever they do, sorry, I can't stop smiling. Kelly's little daughter is so cute. Sorry, she's got that big smile on her face. She's like, "Who's Mr. Clean? Why is he on my screen?" But anyway, my daughter today picked up a bald character of Noah's Ark with a big white beard from the Sunday school class, and she said, "Dad." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." But anyway, he talks about this guy, Mark, his CEO, and Mark is always next to him. So, I mean, when John travels, he travels. John doesn't stop, right? He said, but every opportunity he gets, he thanks Mark, but more importantly, he goes to his daughters and he goes to his wife and he thanks them. He makes a point to always say thank you to them and say, I needed your husband. Thank you for lending them to me. Thank you. And I think that's huge. I think that kind of thing fuels people further along than bonuses do. We all love money. We all, well, we don't love money, but we all like having more of it so we can do the freedom things that we do. But the reality is that words can be so valuable and that be appreciated. And I don't know, for me, it never gives old. Now I said this last week, I'm a words of affirmation person. So, words are a big deal to me. More so than quality time or any of those other things. I love words of affirmation, but letting people know that you need them and compliment people in front of other people, I think that's huge, man. That is huge. And I think, again, not to use Allie as an example, but I think Cassie does a really good job. I've been in a couple of Jewel settings with Allie, and Cassie just constantly just gushes over her in front of other people because she means it, number one. But number two, it's fun to cheer on other people in front of other people. It's a good thing, So any thoughts there on those 3 things of let them know that you need them, compliment people in front of other people, and adding value to people every single day?
I just loved that it was just a really great reminder of thinking about doing that every single day. I definitely knew some of this, but just the reminder and the fact that he kind of gives you like a little cheat sheet, if you will, of like how to do it, kind of like every morning, like look at your schedule, see who you're going to see, and then think of how to be able to add value to them. And so it's just really cool. I was like, I want day. So I don't know, my internet's off and on, so I don't know if you guys can hear me, but
we caught you.
Yeah,
no, it is. And that's awesome. And I'm, one of the things that he talks about there too is walking slowly through the crowd, which is his way of talking about being approachable and connecting with people. Little do you know that the people on your team, regardless of how large your team is, thinks you're pretty awesome. And it's important, I think, when people enter into Plexus, when they enter into your business, when they enter into your team, that we take time to connect with them. We take time to make them feel important. And when you go to events, that you connect with them at events, he talks about walking slowly through the crowd as a way of connection. He told another story how he always gets in trouble by his security team because he always wants to go out to the crowd and talk to people after the fact that he's, been speaking. And so oftentimes they usher him through the kitchen. So he just goes and talks to all the people in the kitchen, at the big hotel or big resort or wherever he's, in the Coliseum or wherever he's he's talking at, because he wants to connect with people, because it's about the people. And I love the story, and he talks about in his book here too about being a pastor at a large church, and he had a young staff member come through and pass everybody up. All the people that were there at the church went right back to his office, got right to work, and he went in there and he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I got to get to work." He goes, "Your work, you just passed it. You just passed your work, man. You're in the people business, and you're supposed to." So I think that's, um, that's pretty cool, to keep in mind. And I know maybe you're thinking, well, I'm just this, I'm just this in Plexus, or I'm just this in Plexus. And you'd be shocked. You would be shocked at the people who are watching you, and the people who light up whenever you give them the time of day. And, people, especially who are new on your team, that are just kind of entering to this world of Plexus and has a hint of an inclination of wanting to run with the business, you taking time and connecting with them, and it's just lighting the world up and saying, wow, they took time out of their busy schedule to sit with me, to walk slowly with me through this time in the beginning. And, it made all the difference. I think someone who really has inspired Cassie and I is Jen Leith. Cassie was for those who don't know, Jen Leith is a diamond in our company, just won the One Plexus Award. And Cassie was probably, I think we were like about to hit Ruby, maybe. She could correct me if she was jump on here, but and she gets a random message from Jen Leith. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to jump on.
I'm on here.
Okay.
I'm on here.
Okay. She gets a random message from Jen Lee saying, "You don't know me, but I've been kind of watching you, and you got a cool story," and and all these things, and started saying, "I'd like to connect with you," and whatever. And of course, we knew who she was, and since then, it sparked a really beautiful friendship between our families. But I can tell you that beginning of the journey of someone of her status that would reach down and be inclined to go and connect with someone that was not at her level, I tell you, it got us through some hard times, got us through some difficult times, because, that meant a lot. So as you advance in this company, connection isn't just about getting as many people that are not in Plexus into your team. Keeping those people is connection. And I am sold out to the fact that people will never come and stick with Plexus solely, most of which I should say, most people will not come and stick with Plexus solely for the amazing products that we provide. Now, they're amazing, but they will stick around because of the people. I really believe that. Or they'll start running with the business because of the people. They may take the products for the next 3 years, but if you really want people to start working the business, it's because of the people. And it's because whenever we hit slow seasons or fast seasons or hard seasons or fun seasons, it's those connections that are going to get them through that. And so it's such a vital role that you play in the life of your team. Not just from getting them into the starting gate with Plexus, but continuing on with them in the journey, So, any other thoughts on these practices? This second practice that we've kind of talked about.
I would talk a little bit about adding value to people, because we don't all have time to sit down, and get in full conversations and stuff. And so I've really recognized the value of social media and how your post can add a lot of value to people. Like even something as simple as sharing a recipe, or like I did the one post about, did you know that you could take Amazon stuff straight to UPS and not package it? And it was like, oh, these comments, like,
right.
Value added. Like,
yes,
you're teaching them something, you're whatever. And it seems simple, but a little thought into your posts and who your audience is, and that's a way to, I don't know, share.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Cassie convicted me about a year ago. We were talking about social media and post, and she just said, when you post, is your persona, is it adding value to people? And you back to some of your posts, you're like, yeah, some of them aren't, and so looking at through those lenses, Kelly, I think is great. And it doesn't have to be earth shattering, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, that melted my heart, now I'm a new person, thank you so much. It can be those things, right? It's amazing what it is. But hey, look, check this out. Amazon and UPS, they work together now, and you can do this. I'm like, well, that's cool. I mean, or, hey, I just experienced this thing with my kids, and it's amazing, and it's a free event, or, whatever. Y'all should go check this out. It's awesome. And, because, I mean, even right now, as of like an hour ago, Cass and I are scouring what to do for Labor Day tomorrow for our kids, and and trying to figure that out. But that's just that's really valuable. I love that, man. Kelly, that you're right. And when some of us don't have time, right, to sit down and make that one-on-one connection or go to coffee because you work or have jobs or whatever the case may be, or life is busy. And so it's amazing what we can do through social media. And just that quick little message, right? That little voice message on our way into work. Hey, just thinking about you today. Hope you're doing great. Hey, get back to me and let me know how you're doing. Just catch me up. And man, it's like you're a priest, right? And asking for confession. Sometimes people just start unloading on you, and you're just like, yes, yeah, I really. And I tell people in our church all the time, they say, well, how do I go out in our community and how do I start caring for people and telling them about our faith and all that? And I say, well, some of the best things to do to care for people is to say the simple phrase, how are you? That phrase can turn someone's day around by saying, how are you doing? To have someone not in their necessarily inner circle or in their family or under their home roof asking how they are, people really respond to that because they like when they are being cared for by other people. So I love that, Kelly. It's good.
Hey, Cal, can I add something?
You may.
I kind of have a little testimony of that this week. I know I kind of talked to you and Cassie about it, but I intentionally chose not to run for Leaders Retreat this year. It's kind of a tough little go right at the beginning, but it's been where my family's needed to be, and it's good, like all the shout outs now. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, could have been there. But anyway, moving on from that statement, I am affirmed. I was where I was needed to be, because this week I kind of have these 5 people that from when I got started, they kind of probably jumped on with me with the products within probably the first 6 months of when I started. They're the people that they've got tough stories. And so something that I kind of started with them is I had relationships with them in different parts of life, either through Brett, like it was a friend of Brett's that came through me, or I had connection with them, outside of Plexus before. And so I started a thing with them so when they would post things on social media, like I would make sure that I knew the heart of what was actually going on with their story. One of them, had been battling cancer. One of them had abuse in their story. One of them had a deep, hard loss. It's just, hard stories. And so their social media was just so positive, so upbeat. And so I started my check-in, because I knew if I said, how are you? It was such a layered, loaded response that they had such poverty mindset in a lot of their story that they wouldn't even be able to respond. So in order to meet them in that, I started saying, hey, I just wanted to, I started using the word affirm, hey, I just really want to affirm you that I know that this is going on in your story, but yet you are really pursuing positive, seeing perspective, really kind of trying to teach that abundant, growth mindset in them. And this week, how I said I didn't do Leaders Retreat. I had a friend several of them this week were like, hey, I've been seeing a couple of posts of people that are going to San Diego. Are you and Brett going? I know that you're going to be there. They just assumed that I got it. And so it was a chance that I was able to talk to them about the balance, and they are still ordering products. They haven't gone. And I think that it was a place where I felt affirmed that in business, there are just times when we have to be able to show that, yes, we are about incentives, we are about a growth, but we ultimately are about relationship. And I was honest with them. I said last year, I made it, but it was tough on the other side for me. And I wanted to focus on the heart of what my business is about now. And for our family, that was focusing on relationships outside of the incentive for me. And that's what I've been doing for the past, through this whole, Leaders Retreat. I've just been meeting with different people every week that are my dream business builders. So I'm kind of doing it from a more patient stance of hey, I am really getting to know what your full story is about, instead of what I did last year, needing that sale right at the end, and it just didn't serve me well on the other side. Sure. So I think sometimes like, and then those 5 people like all affirmed me individually on, hey, I have continued like staying with it because you checked on me, like knowing my story. So I just wanted to kind of add that, like with adding value and like social media, that when we can affirm like outside of what they're just saying, like on social media, then it like takes the relationship like 3 layers deep down, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people can't see that. And I have to know. So was saying that I 100% and 50% resonated when you said you have to evaluate your day based on what you sow and not on what you reap. And that's exactly where I'm at when it comes to Plexus business right now. I'm like, I am meeting individually in ways that I was not doing this whole other time. Knowing like what I can see, the potential that I see in them. I know their financial struggles. I know their health issues, but yet I'm like really taking the time to like, with certain individuals that I'm like, you need this, you're going to be here, like believing that over them, you know?
Well, and it's going to bear fruit. You know, that kind of approach will bear fruit. So I love that. And I love that you really speak to the heart of really why we're in what we're doing. And that's connecting with people, and that's caring for people for where they're at, you know, and it's not about, you know, it's the icing on the cake, right? All the incentives, all the wonderful things. I mean, that's great,
Right.
you know, but it's, we're in the people business. I love that. And it kind of speaks to a principle he talks about in the kind of the next little section. He says that people will, what is it? I want to make sure I got it right. They will connect when they feel like, when they understand, but they will commit when they feel understood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you're doing. You're understanding these people's lives and making sure that they know that you, they feel understood by you. And when it's time to, you know, and even as they're taking products just normally right now, you know, and the people you're meeting with from week to week and building those relationships, I mean, that's going to get people into a mentality that Trisha's not in here for the quick sell or for the, you know, for all the things, not one of those, I have this massive, sale right now and I want everybody to sign up for Plexus, we want to help you. And like, everybody signs up and a day later, I want a trip. I mean, so that's kind of, you gotta be careful, right? I mean, because it can come off a little bit, but you're sowing seeds of understanding and knowing people's story. And I think that's a huge connection. I think it's going to bear fruit for sure. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
Could I add something really quick?
You may, please, Leah.
Sorry if my internet cuts out. I never know if my internet or the person who's frozen. I'm like, never know. Okay. I actually just wanted to share a quick story because I was asking myself as I was reading this, what does it practically look like to add value? Like when I'm at work and I have a coworker standing next to me, what am I actually saying that's going to add value? And as I'm asking myself this question while I'm watching the Zoom, an example came to mind, and it's not my story to share, so I'm going to leave her name out of it. She did share it in a group of ours while we were at convention, but it was a very tender moment, so I'll leave her name out of it. But there was somebody at convention this year that when the Beyond Blessed team, so Jody McComas and Kelly and kind of all of us under Jody, we met kind of towards the end of the week, and people were talking about, different things that stood out to them. There were a lot of tears shed about just some different things that people had to overcome even just to get to convention. And there was this one gal that said, like, she had a whole lot of anxiety about even coming. She was convinced she wasn't going to. I think at most she's been silver. And so for her, like her own mindset, it was just hard, right? It was just like in physically getting to convention, I think she had a really long distance to come. And she's like doubting herself. And even when she showed up to convention, it was hard. And she shared with us that she's like, I didn't know that he knew me, but Kyle Rainey made his way all the way through the crowd to say hello to me and said my name. This isn't me, by the way. It was like she's starting to shed tears. She's like that he would go out of his way to just have that moment. And Terry knows who I'm talking about. And like she's just bawling, and we're all bawling because we all love the Rainies. But it was an example of something it was just a really simple moment of somebody, Kyle, who you like the genuineness of who you are came out in just that moment. I don't know if you remember that or the gesture that you made, but like it impacted her completely. Like the whole week, she was like, "I'm so glad I came."
I'm turning red. I feel like I'm turning red. My head red. I think I'm turning red. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I don't think I recall being told that afterwards. So thank you. Cassie may know what. Oh, you do. Okay, good. Well, I appreciate that. I don't really know how to respond to that other than thanks.
Yeah.
And,
No, just it was
yeah,
it was a good example of,
well,
of adding value.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I thank you. That's awesome. And I'm glad that she felt that way because Cassie and I have always.
Well, and I guess too, the other point too, Kyle, is all you did was say her name and say hi.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
And so
yeah.
That is what I'm talking about. It's like there's all these people out there that all we need to do is say hi to them and we'll change their life. Right.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I think Cassie got paid a really awesome compliment this last week while she was at the Align retreat. We were talking and kind of unpacking it. Maybe she won't tell you about it, but a couple of gals came to her and just said, you're just such a normal person. Thank you, for being normal. And I think that actually is a badge of honor that Cassie and I try to uphold. We just want to be normal people, connecting with people with real lives. And he talks about your strengths. And so Leah, I appreciate that because it just confirms something that I've tried to work on. But I think we need to, when we're connected people, we need to know our voice, and I don't, and here's what I mean by that. A few years ago, a person in ministry that I really respect, he's like, when you preach or when you talk to people or whenever you're doing your thing in the church, you got to know your voice. Don't try to be somebody else, just be you, because I'm noticing you're trying to sound like other, the people that you're listening to and inspired by. And I thought that really stuck with me. And so I've always tried to kind of find my niche, my gifting. And so he lists here some of his connecting strengths: humor, authenticity, confidence, hope, passion, simplicity. And I actually can resonate with the humor and the authenticity. I like using both of those things to do that. So I appreciate the story, Leah, because I always want everyone to feel connected and involved, like no matter what. I don't want anybody to feel left out. That's probably the Enneagram 9 in me, I'm sure. That wants to make sure everybody's happy. But no, that meant a lot to me. But what are some of I'd love to hear some of your connecting strengths. What are some of your connecting strengths? I like how he lists those out there. And it's funny, as Cass and I are sitting here listening to John, I mean, humor is a constant with him, and he's funny, but not like distractingly funny. Like he's funny, and it's just like, man, but he always connects, the point with the humor. And so what are some of your connecting strengths that you think you possess that may not even be listed on this list here? Of course, there's others, right?
We really like to talk about ourselves.
I know. We can talk about each other and how great each other are, right? But it's hard to talk about ourselves and how great we are.
Yeah. I do all these things to remind myself of what I am not doing and need to do. So,
yeah, I understand.
I'm not kidding. Like all these things are like, oh, that's right. I need to do that. Yeah. Like I struggle with talking to people in person. So
I don't know though. I feel like you're a very personable, person. At least in my opinion. Trisha has the gift of connecting with total strangers. I have been amazed how many times at convention she's like, "Hey, Colin, Cassie, this is my friend I met on the cruise. Who's this? Oh, we were just in line together at the buffet, or whatever. And now we're best friends forever. And they're from Ohio and blah, 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 blah." And it's just like, that's pretty incredible. Like you were just in a line for a buffet. So I'm picking on you a little bit, but I mean it as a compliment. Like you're able to connect with people. And that I can't tell you, I probably can look and tell you over a dozen messages I've received from Terry Mosley in the last 2 years of just just rooting for you, love you guys, blah, blah, blah. I mean, those words of affirmation, unprompted, I mean, really, there's nothing to that, as far as she didn't think we were having a hard day and needed, whatever, just wanted to tell us that, she cares about us. And I think that's a big deal, so you may not think you have connecting strengths, but you really do. You really do. He talks about being a good listener here. My wife is a good listener. I think she's a really good listener. I, on the other hand, constantly in need of help listening, and but I'm getting better. But passion too. I think all of you are very passionate at what you do. Leah keeps telling us stories on these weekly calls that make us all cry. So I mean, there you go. And so yeah, I mean, so what I would encourage you to do, I love what Kelly says, like, you look at these, now I need to do this better. But can I encourage you, maybe in the days and weeks to come in this next season, I think it would be really vital and great for your business if you learn your connecting strengths, because you don't want to be operating in your connecting weaknesses. And what I mean by that is, if you're not good in a certain medium, if you're not well at connecting at a certain thing, then do what you're good at. It's great to improve and gain skills, but connect in your rhythm and your voice. Just be you, because people want the authentic you when you're connecting with them, because they don't want to get into plexus and find you're not who they thought you were. When they first, what you draw them in is how you'll keep them. Cass and I have set a certain, I don't want to use the word standard, I don't know, but a culture on our team that I believe has benefited us, and it draws people in, and they stick around, because we try to create a culture of caring and love and community and all these things. But a lot of different plexus teams have similar cultures, but some have a little bit of a bent of a different, and it'll draw those kind of people. We've got, Cassie and I have got the privilege and been afforded to meet a lot of great leaders. And after talking with them, they kind of talk about the culture of their team. We'd walk away going, that's amazing, but I would feel so lost in that, because they're so driven. This team is so driven, on and on all the time. And it's just not, and so, but God has put the certain people on their team for that, I mean, that's their type of personalities. So it's just really important, I think, to have that authentic connection, so that people who join your team, really get the real you and the real type of team that you're trying to provide them. And they'll stick around for that. They really will. They really will stick. So, we got 5 minutes left, and like I said, I knew we weren't going to get through this whole thing, because there's just so much good stuff in this one. I don't know if you get a chance to look at the 7 motivations of people that he lists. I don't know if any of you got to look at that. Number 1 just hits you square in the heart, man. People want to do what they were created to do. Oh my goodness. And you know what? When we're frustrated and we're upset, or when you see frustrated moms and friends on Facebook or whatever of their job, it's because they're doing something they were not created to do, right? They're stuck. And connecting with them, saying, hey, I've got an answer that may help you do what you want to do. I think that's huge. People love, so they want purpose. He says he wants autonomy, right? We love freedom. We love to be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it. People want relationships. And I can tell you, there's a few people in Plexus and even on our team that don't need the money, who don't need, doesn't need the business side of it. And the products are fine, but they're in it for the people. They're in it for community, because they make friends. I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that that's their motivation. He talks about progress and mastery, like how some people just want to be able to, are high achievers, and they want to be able to achieve a goal and master something. Recognition, we've talked about that before, right? Some people love recognition. Some people like me hate recognition, and so that's not a connecting factor for me, is recognition. But I know a lot of people are motivated by recognition, and then I love his last one, because he doesn't pull any punches. Money is a motivator for people, right? I think that's such a legit thing to say. I can't tell you, I connected with a pastor here in town. Unfortunately, he tried for a little bit, but didn't stick with it. But, one of the big motivators for him to try Plexus out was because he wanted to make more money than he had. So he had more freedom, autonomy, do his purpose and all those things. So anyway, I'm going to let you go, so you can go connect with your pillow and fall asleep and go to bed this evening. For some of us who are It's getting late in the evening, but I want to leave you with this thought, and that is that I want you to know, Cass, and I think that you're very understood. And for the people who watch this later, that we believe that you're very understood, and that we believe that you're on this team for a reason, and that you have a platform that none of us have. You have a unique connections that none of us have, and that you're in Ohio, and you're in Oregon, you're in Arizona, you're in all these different places, Washington. You're in all these states, and you're in all these communities for a reason, and it's not by serendipity or circumstance or just random chance, but you're there for a reason, and there's so many people waiting for you to connect with them about possibly an opportunity of a lifetime. So keep being you, keep connecting with people, keep being your wonderful selves, and thank you for allowing Cassie and I to have a connection with you. We love you dearly, and we appreciate you. And Leah, if you could just call me once a week and tell me good things like that once a week, that'd be awesome. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great night.